I just wonder how many things we limit ourselves from because of our identity we have around ourselves. We're like, no, I'm not that person that sings karaoke or dances or speaks in front of people or starts my own business or, no, that's not me. Like, how do you limit yourself in that way? Rebel against your limitations. You can literally be anyone you want to be. You are a limitless human. It's just those limitations we put on ourselves that stop us. Welcome to Alignment Adventures. This is a podcast where we explore what it means to live a fulfilling, aligning, and present life. I'm your host, Lindsay Tanner, and I am so grateful that you are here. Hello, my loves, and welcome back to another episode of Alignment Adventures. I am so grateful and honored that you are here with me today, and I hope you are all doing well. As you know, I have absolutely loved sharing these soul-giving conversations with other beautiful souls, talking about what it means to live in alignment, talking about how we can live our best lives, how we can work through the hard stuff and step into our full embodiment of our highest selves. And I also love coming to you with a good solo episode where I can just share my heart and my message. Those are my roots, right? So I'm coming to you guys with a good old-fashioned solo episode. And this idea came to me when I was reading a book. I recently finished The Power of Fun by Catherine Price. I talked about that in my YouTube video where I share what I'm reading this winter. Such a good book. I highly recommend it if you feel like you need more fun in your life. But one of the things she mentioned in there was being a little bit rebellious. I think she had a whole chapter on it. And that just so resonated with me. And coincidentally and synchronistically, it also ties in with the theme of the current zodiac season that we're in. So as you guys are listening to this, we may just have like a week or a few days left of Aquarius season. And as you all know, or may not know, that has been one of my alignment activities, is researching the themes and the intentions and just the things that come with each zodiac season. And I've been making yoga flows that go along with them. It's just been so fun for me. Speaking of fun, do the things that feel fun to you. Use that as your guide. But with that, Aquarian energy, a big theme in that type of energy is rebellion or the rebel. And I just love that so much. And what's interesting, I think I mentioned this on another podcast, is that my moon sign is in Aquarius. And that just makes so much sense to me because I do feel like I've always had a little bit of a rebellious spirit. Like I like to do things that are not maybe the common path. I like to do things that seem a little strange sometimes, or things that scare me. I like to be a little bit rebellious. So I thought it'd be really fun to have a whole episode breaking down this energy of being rebellious and how it can really benefit you and how it can really help you live your most aligned life. My message, my purpose over here. So let's get right into it. So when we think about being a rebel, you may think of someone getting in trouble, right? But that's not necessarily what I'm talking about here. When I'm talking about that rebel energy, I'm just talking about being open and curious and questioning why you do the things that you do. So here are some things that you can start rebelling that may seem a little quote unquote safer to your mind, right? Because your mind is going to be like, wait, I can't rebel against this, or I can't do this differently. This is how it's set up, right? We are rebelling against societal norms or what's expected of you from your parents or from your peers or even just from yourself. Rebelling from those expectations, those external expectations, wherever they are coming from, and allowing yourself to tune back into your internal guidance and let that guide you. So what are some things you can rebel against? The first thing I have written down here are routines. Now, I think there's so much beauty in routines. I actually recently uploaded a morning routine video to my YouTube channel that just, again, felt really fun. And I think there is a lot of power in being intentional with our time. But many times we can get locked into routines and we're like, no, this is how I do it. this is how I've always done it, and this is how I will always do it, right? But just being a little bit more flexible and, again, rebellious with your routines. Like, what if you woke up and did something different than you normally do in the morning? Or even after work, what if you came home and did something completely different? Or going back to like what is commonplace, a lot of times we think, okay, I got to get the stuff done on my to-do list and then I can have fun. What if you're a little rebellious and did the fun thing first and then got to your to-do list? That is something I try to incorporate into my life. I let things flow as much as I can. Of course, I'm a mother, I'm a wife, I work full time, I have a business, I have obligations, right? But as much as I can, I let my life flow and I let myself do the fun thing. And then as I'm doing the fun thing, I realize, oh, I want to go do this other thing that's on my to-do list. And then I flow into that. So just an idea, be playful with this. Like, that is a huge energy of being the rebel, is being playful. So be playful with this energy. What routines can you mix up a little bit? Like, just experiment with it. Now, the next thing you can rebel against are your beliefs. Our beliefs can be changed. Now, I'm not saying that's easy. That takes work and, again, intentionality. But if you have a belief that no longer serves you, you can rebel against it and change that belief, especially the ones that we picked up from our younger years, right? And this is why slowing down and meditation are so important, because sometimes you don't even realize you have the belief. But once you have that awareness that you have this pattern or belief that's no longer serving you, like you aren't worthy of something, or that you need to show up in this certain way or wear certain masks or whatever it is, once you're aware of it, that is the first step. And you can recognize that as it comes up. As you get into a behavior that's like self-sabotage, you're like, oh, I'm procrastinating because I have this belief that I'm not worthy of going after the thing I want to, or whatever it is. Rebel against that. Be the rebel. Tune into that Aquarian energy, or really anytime, right? It doesn't have to be an Aquarius season. Anytime you kind of embody the archetype of the rebel and question those beliefs, that is so going to serve you. And one of the major parts of living an aligning life is releasing the things that don't align with this anymore, like beliefs that are holding us back. Now, the next thing you can rebel against are traditions. Now, this is feeling a little spicy, but, think about maybe traditions you have maybe in your family or your culture. Some of them are beautiful and you may want to keep, and that's amazing. But if there's like a holiday coming up and you always feel obligated to do this one thing, what if you rebelled a little bit and just mixed it up? Like, even just like changing the location of where you normally celebrate Thanksgiving. I know Thanksgiving's not even coming up, but that's just something that's coming up. Maybe you want to go celebrate it in a different location, like a different state. That's something that we kind of had to do when we moved here to Arizona. And that's been a really fun new tradition for us. And that almost felt a little rebellious, right? Instead of doing the normal thing that we did for Thanksgiving, we now celebrate it here. So just think about traditions you may have, and you're like, well, we're doing it this way because we always have done it this way. Can you rebel and just like mix it up a little bit in terms of location or the people you're with or the activities you do? How can you embody that rebellious energy in any traditions that you're feeling called to do? And again, use your internal guidance. Use those nudges to guide you on these rebellious activities. The next thing I have that you can rebel against, and these are words I'm trying to take out of my vocabulary, but those are shoulds and expectations. We love to quote unquote should, SHOULD, on ourselves all the time. Well, I should do this or I should do that because so-and-so is expecting me to do this, or because this is just what I always do. Really examine when you use the word should in your life. And that is such a beautiful place to start. Rebel against the shoulds. Do you really feel like you should do that thing? Do you have to do that thing? Is someone's life dependent on you doing that thing? And of course, my mind comes up with expectations of like being a mother, right? Yes, there are certain things you have to do. but maybe you can do it in a different way. Or maybe you can ask for help. How can you rebel against the shoulds in your life and expectations? I had a whole episode on this. It seems like maybe a year ago, of like a trip we went on, and expectations like of that trip totally took away from the experience of the trip. I've noticed sometimes the best times I've had are when I go to a place that I have zero expectations for, because I really allow myself to be open to what that experience is bringing me. So can you rebel against any expectations you have for like an activity coming up or a trip or whatever it may be? I've noticed the mind just loves to have consistency, right? And I've noticed, especially with my mind, when I find something it likes, it thinks, okay, if I could just repeat that thing again and again and again with the same situation, the same scenario, the same music, the same people, the same thing I'm watching, I'm going to have the same experience. And that is not the case. Each present moment is different, right? But the mind wants to hold on to, that's why it loves routines and, traditions and expectations and all of that, because it thinks, oh, if I just recreate that same experience I had before, it's going to be just as fun or just as magical. And no, each present moment is different. So just dropping those expectations and rebelling against them can really help you be open and allow new magic to come into that present moment. The next thing you can rebel against are limitations. Now, this kind of goes back to beliefs and shoulds, but what limitations are you setting on yourself? Like, what are you limiting yourself from doing that you want to do? Like, maybe it's as silly as like going to a new like dance class or something, but you're like, no, I don't have the time. I look silly. I just can't do that, even though you've been getting a nudge to go to that dance class. Like, what if you just rebelled and went? It doesn't mean you're like turning into a professional dancer. You have to go each week. What if you just went and experimented with it and see how it felt? I just wonder how many things we limit ourselves from because of our identity we have around ourselves. We're like, no, I'm not that person that sings karaoke or dances or speaks in front of people or starts my own business or, no, that's not me. Like, how do you limit yourself in that way? Rebel against your limitations. You can literally be anyone you want to be. You are a limitless human. It's just those limitations we put on ourselves that stop us. So what a beautiful thing to rebel against, your limitations you are putting on yourselves and others. Maybe you're limiting people around you with your idea of who they are. That is something I know I need a reminder of as well. Like the people around me, we tend to like put them in boxes and label them, right? From our experiences. That's just what our mind does. It loves to judge and label and sort things and put things where they belong inside our brain. But are we limiting the people around us by our expectations of them? Rebel against that. I know this episode is good, but so is this announcement. So as you guys know, I have been on a mission to help as many people as possible live their most aligning lives. And that is why I created my first ever class. Yes, I'm going back to the quote unquote classroom as a teacher and teaching my first class, Live Your Most Aligned Life. It is starting on March 6th and it will be 8 weeks long, and we will have a live class, which is online through Zoom, every Monday at 7 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, and it will be focused on a topic around living your most aligning life, from practicing gratitude to connecting to your internal guidance to setting intentions and using the law of attraction to surrendering, and also working through those limiting beliefs, those mind stories, those things that are stopping you, that are keeping you stuck and feeling unfulfilled. We're going to work through that stuff, and you're going to get all these tools that you can use as you step into your highest self so you can go on living your most aligning life. So like I said, each week will include a live class where we will talk about the topic of that week. And then starting week 2, we will also be doing internal guidance work. So yes, just like you've heard on the few episodes I've had recently, I will be getting you into your internal guidance and asking your internal guidance questions relating to your life so you can start connecting and living and acting and making decisions from that space, that part of you, because it is part of you that loves you so much. When you tap into that space and start living from your internal guidance, guys, it is pure magic. And I just want to share that with as many people as possible. Each week, you will also get a yoga flow and a meditation aligned to the topic of that week, as well as some aligned actions, or I guess you could call them homework. We're just kind of rebranding that word, again, pertaining to the topic of that week. You will also get one 60-minute one-on-one internal guidance session with myself. So we'll be doing some internal guidance work within the live classes with everyone. So you'll get to hear other people getting into their internal guidance, but you will also get your own personalized 60-minute one-on-one internal guidance session to really make sure you have and find that connection. I want to help as many of you as I can really tap into that energy. And what's cool is once you get in that energy, you know how to do it. And again, you can take that throughout your life and tap into it more and more and more. You will also get access to a group chat with all of your classmates and myself, so you can ask questions and get support really at any time throughout this process. And it's also going to be a space where we can celebrate and connect, because I know sometimes when you're on this journey, it can feel really lonely when no one else around you is going through this stuff or trying to live this way or connected to their internal guidance. So I want to create a space where we can really support and love each other. I've noticed so many of us love to consume this content and we love to take in all this stuff and it makes sense and we're like, yes, this is how we should live, but we struggle implementing it. That is why I've created this course, so you can stop feeling stuck and actually embody and implement these concepts to help you live your most aligning life. So if you're interested, I will leave a link in the show notes or the description wherever you are listening to this episode. Make sure you sign up before March 6th so you can get in before we get started with class. And this is the first time I am running it, so it's a super discounted offer. As always, check in with your internal guidance. Do you have the nudge to join us? If you do, I encourage you to follow that nudge, and I would be honored to have you in Live Your Most Aligned Life. See you in class. Now, these last few things I'm going to group together because I feel like they go together. But the last few things you can rebel against are formalities, conventionality, and societal norms. I'm all about questioning everything over here, especially societal norms, because I just notice the way our society is structured at a mass level doesn't support tuning into your intuition or learning about the things I talk about on here, or living your most aligned life. A lot of it is conditioned to put you into the system of working in a company. And, they're just based off things that don't serve us anymore. So without going down too many rabbit holes there and getting on my soapbox with that, what formalities, conventionalities, or social norms can you rebel against? And again, this doesn't mean you're taking on that label of a rebel all the time. Doesn't mean you have to go off the grid and be a hippie, even though that's something that I dream about. Doesn't mean you have to be like a social activist or, take on any role that you may be thinking in your mind. How can you just playfully rebel against those formalities, conventionalities, or social norms? So let's think of a few examples for this one. To give an example from that book I read, she talked about how she had to give a presentation and it was online. I mean, I know a lot of us work remotely now or have online presentations. And she said she just kind of threw her notes out and gave this presentation from her passion and her heart. So maybe that seems too high stakes for you, especially if you're someone who feels a lot of anxiousness about presenting. But I love that, adding some more casuality and not being so formal in a presentation. That's something I always like to do, especially in my work and my full-time job. When I give a presentation, I love to be more casual with it. It helps me get into alignment and it just helps me get into the flow of the presentation. So how can you make something that maybe is more formal, just more casual, more casual to you? And maybe it's even in the way you dress. What if you wanted to incorporate more pieces in your wardrobe that do feel rebellious and are a little bit more playful and not as formal to certain things that you wear? I just feel like that's a really fun way to play with this. go to Goodwill, or maybe you don't want to go shop at Goodwill, but maybe that's rebellious for you too, to go shop at Goodwill instead of ordering from Amazon or shopping at Target. Go to Goodwill and like pick out some clothing pieces that just really speak to your soul, that are something that you've never worn before, and just be playful. That's a fun way to do that, because you're, one, not contributing to consumerism in that way of like buying new things and fast fashion and all that. And it's a low cost way to experiment with the things that you're wearing. So that just feels like a fun example for me. So I hope these gave you some ideas of how you can be a little bit more rebellious in your life. So let's talk about why being a rebel can feel so fun and aligning to us, and can be such a good and playful exercise for us. I've noticed, especially for myself and for a lot of other minds and humans out there, we really enjoy new experiences. Now, you may be someone out there that says, no, I do not like change. I like to do the same thing over and over again. And maybe this just doesn't resonate with you. And if that's it, if that's coming from your internal guidance, totally okay. But if it's coming from your ego, I just ask you to playfully question that. But a lot of times we really do value new experiences. And a lot of times that's where those really fun and aligning activities come from, like memories you have where you're like, that was such a fun time, and it was something you just did not expect, and it was new. So embodying that rebellious energy really allows you to step into things that are out of the box for you, that are just things that you don't normally do. And this is where you can really discover maybe your next steps. Like that, I don't want to put this expectation on you, but that is something that could happen. As you're doing this, you can notice that, hey, I really like this activity. I really like doing things this way. And that's going to lead you to maybe the next hobby you want to take on, or maybe the next steps you want to take in your career, or just allow you to live your life in alignment with you. I think a lot of times we just get stuck in our routines and habits, and that's why we're unhappy and unfulfilled and not present. So I just encourage you to be fun and playful with this. We are multifaceted people. We cannot put ourselves in boxes, right? That is one question I always ask my guests, like, who are you? And they always talk about how at our base, we are awareness, we are love, we are compassion. We like to put all these identities and labels on us, but we are multifaceted souls. So just allow yourself to try new things. Just try some new things, even if it's new food. Rebel there. Like maybe you need to mix up your dinner recipes or your dinner menu for the week. I try to do that, incorporate one new recipe a week. I don't always, but it's fun. It's fun to try new things. And my last note on being rebellious doesn't mean you're being bad. You can be rebellious and do good things for the world. Like think of all of the major people that we see, like Gandhi and Martin Luther King and other people that have done amazing things for our world. They were a little rebellious, right? Like they were thinking outside the box. They weren't following mainstream. So just because you're being rebellious doesn't mean you're being bad. It can be something really, really good for not only for yourself, but those around you as well. You can be rebellious and responsible. Being rebellious doesn't mean you're not being responsible. All right, my loves, I hope that was useful for you. This just felt like such a fun topic to talk on, and I feel like no matter who you are, where you're at, what time and space you're listening to this, even if it's not Aquarius season, you can incorporate a little bit more rebellion into your life. So share any takeaways you have with me over on Instagram. You can screenshot this episode and just tag me at Lindsay with an A.M. Tanner. Please share this episode with anyone that you think needs to add a little bit more rebellious energy in their life. And if you haven't yet, please leave a review on the podcast. I'm so grateful for every single one of you that have already done that on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify. It just really helps the podcast get to the people that it needs to get to. And like I mentioned before, if you're interested in embodying these alignment concepts more in your life and connecting to your internal guidance on a deeper level, please join me in Live Your Most Aligned Life, the class starting March 6th. Of course, there's a link in the show notes. Reach out with any questions. I'm just sending you all so much love, all the gratitude, all the high vibes, and of course I will see you next week on Alignment Adventures.